Everyone, John and Sarah here from Social Edge. And in today's webinar, we're going to help you navigate the future of your Khoros community. We're going to take a look at what's changed, what to evaluate, and what comes next. So my name is John Reynolds. I'm the VP of Technology at Social Edge Consulting.
My name is Sarah Collins, and I'm Associate Director of Strategy at Social Edge Consulting. So let's talk about the current situation. What happened with the acquisition and what uncertainty might be felt, right? So Chorus was recently acquired, and has created a high level of uncertainty for customers. A lot of members are rightfully concerned about long-term platform availability as well as stability. Uh, There's always questions that are ongoing about continued investment, product roadmap, and support, and where that will all go. In addition, there have been recent organizational changes as well as new strategic direction under this new ownership. Of course, with all of this, it's natural to feel uncertain, and these concerns are more than valid as well as widespread, so you're not alone in these concerns. What does that really mean for you? Well, platform transitions can impact service quality, pricing, features, day-to-day activities, and your community is really a strategic asset that needs stability. So now is the time to assess your position, not just wait for problems to emerge. It's time to be proactive with evaluating what protects your community as well as your organization. Why is regular platform evaluation healthy? It's an industry best practice, right? It's always recommended to evaluate your community platform regularly. Oftentimes, the recommended timeline is at least, 1 year before your license renewal. Even if you are satisfied on your current platform, it's okay to understand or want to understand that there are other alternatives that could strengthen your company, community, organization's position. The market also is evolving every day, right? It evolves quickly. So there's new capabilities and new vendors that are emerging constantly. And evaluation isn't abandonment. You're not just saying goodbye to your platform, and that's that. It's really a practice of good governance. So what is some key evaluation criteria? Well, let's first talk about functionality. Within functionality, you want to focus on your current feature set. So does the platform you have still meet your needs, the features that are available to you? Innovation roadmap as well. What new capabilities are planned? Is it achievable on the current platform? Is it best to look at other alternatives that can maybe better suit your roadmap? Modern features is another big area to look at. That could be made up of AI, advanced analytics, mobile experience, personalization. What features are you looking for, and is the platform meeting those needs? Specific customization options. Are you able to adapt the platform to evolving requirements, right? As these requirements are ever so changing, how is the platform able to keep up with that? And does your platform connect or integrate with your current ecosystem? Maybe it doesn't, and there's other alternatives that could integrate more easily or seamlessly. And then another big one is scalability. Communities are always growing. We're hoping that communities are growing and trying to bring users in. So how is this platform scaling with your user set? Some questions you can also ask yourselves around functionality. Are other competitors' platforms offering better member experiences? Is the platform keeping pace with certain technological trends? Again, some of those features or other integrations that you might want to have or need to have within your community or organization. One of the other big areas to focus on is cost or total cost of ownership, especially direct licensing costs, right? That's annual platform fees, anything that comes with that licensing cost. Maybe the current platform you're on is getting a little too high in fees or costs, and there's other alternatives that are at a lower price value that could suit your needs. Then there's certain hidden costs, right, that we want to consider. The staff time or actual user time to manage platform issues. What support tickets might not be deflected by the community? What custom development and maintenance is required with the community, as well as integration costs or potential API usage? And then training and onboarding expenses, right? These are all costs that you want to consider that are not front of line. Price stability is another big one, right? Does a platform or a certain provider have a predictable price stability, or is it more about increasing or it has surprise increases? On the other side of it, what value do you actually receive from your community, right? So, what ROI are you getting on your investment? Are users able to deflect calls by using the community? Is staff able to maybe more easily learn the platform? What kind of value does it directly provide, right? So outside of even call deflections, what kind of channels are you able to reduce? And then contract flexibility, right? Maybe the current platform you're on, the specific terms, length, or exit clauses might be not what you're looking for. There are other platforms that could meet those needs. And really a key insight that I think we've both learned from working on a number of different platforms and with a number of different customers in various industries is that the cheapest option isn't always the best value. It's really best to calculate the total cost of ownership, not just your license fees. Now let's talk about the next section, support quality. What kind of response times do you have within your platform or community? How quickly are the issues actually being addressed? Documentation quality. What kind of self-service resources and or knowledge base is available for your community managers or those that are maintaining the community? Community resources. Are there forums or training certificate programs to allow these community owners to feel more empowered and again lead to that self-service material? And then proactive outreach. Does the vendor contact you or only respond to issues? You don't want a vendor that's only responding to issues when they're brought up, but you want a vendor that's going to be more proactive in addressing the issues as well as sharing news, announcements, or updates with you as a customer. You might be asking yourself, when is it time to evaluate? As mentioned before, about 1 year before renewal at a minimum. That gives you time for a thorough assessment. But the ideal, if you have the availability and bandwidth, is 18 months before renewal. That gives you some extra time and allows you to plan and execute a migration even if needed. And it really is recommended. Don't wait until the contract expires. Rush decisions always lead to poorer outcomes or maybe a poorer platform that might not suit all of your needs. There might also be some events or triggers that you notice that could warrant immediate evaluation. Like with Khoros, a vendor acquisition or major organizational change. It could be a significant price increase in the platform, maybe a decline in the support quality, any platform stability issues, especially if those are growing more and more prominent. And then again, any strategic shift in your organization's needs. So all of these different triggers might warrant you to kind of look at your platform right away and take an inventory of what you have and maybe what other platforms could provide.
Thanks, Sarah. If your evaluation leads to a migration decision, we want to make sure that the migration process removes any fear you have of starting and helps with the planning of your move. So the migration process is split into a few different phases. The first phase is building a new environment. So think when you stood up your current community, really building the new environment. If you did move to the platform, building that new environment would be similar to starting from scratch. So let's take a look at what that entails. First, it would be the platform setup. You would gain access to your new platform, configure it for your branding, your structure, your categories, etc. You'd configure access and permissions. Most likely it'll be similar but slightly different to what you have now. And you'd go through the process of setting up that admin hierarchy and user roles. Integrations, some of the necessary items like single sign-on would be configured from the beginning. You could also integrate your CRM, support systems, and analytics tools. If you have any customizations, you can take the time to implement any of those required features and workflows. And there's a chance that what you had as a customization in the past is an out-of-the-box feature in the new platform. And a testing environment. If you're provided with additional non-production environments or a sandbox, you could use that sandbox for admin training and testing. The timeline for this is usually only 2 to 3 weeks once you gain access to it. And your current platform is live this entire time, right? So the new environment that you're standing up is only available to you and the admins that you allow access to. So there should be no disruption during this current phase. The next phase is the migration of the actual data, and this will happen in parallel to the construction of your new community. So let's talk about what gets migrated. From a Khoros perspective, all discussion threads and replies with full history going back as far as you want. And it's also a common practice to only retain threads and replies from a certain period of time based on the nature of your business. All user profiles, reputation scores, badges, and achievements, they can all be migrated. Knowledge base articles and documentation can be easily migrated from one platform to another. And all of this content would include attachments, embedded images, and embedded videos. Metadata also is essential. Any categorization, user tagging, and metadata can port over to your new platform. The process we have in place for this is a series of automated tools to bulk migrate your content. If you think about a migration process, you can imagine planning for a long period of time and then at the very end having a lengthy and risky migration task. We choose to automate the migration as soon as possible. And then from the point of that initial migration, we set up delta migrations so that at the time of your switch, there's as little downtime to your end users as possible, and of course, less risk. We'll do these test migrations to ensure that the data comes over with integrity. We will also map the URLs and change the URLs to preserve your SEO. And we'll certainly have multiple test cycles before the final migration. And this timeline is generally around 1 to 2 weeks for the initial migration, which includes exporting from Khoros and importing into the new platform. And again, a reminder here that the old platform is live and remains operational. There should be no impact to Khoros while we are extracting the data. Then the last phase is the identifying the cutover date. Some pre-cutover activities would be a final data sync from the old platform. That could be as close to the cutover point as possible. The timing of the data sync would also coincide with any additional configuration that you may have to do if you take this opportunity to reorganize, or you have to bring in a number of people to help with some moving around of content or some testing, you could take that on an off hours where you have the time to do that. But if you want to have as seamless a transition as possible, the data sync can be done as close to that transition point, and it could be less than an hour or a few hours of transition to your new community being live. Definitely with pre-cutover, you would want your admin and moderator training completed so that your admins are enabled on day one. You would complete your member communication campaigns. And again, we have templates for these, which can start weeks, if not months ahead of time to help communicate what this change is going to be to users if there is going to be considerable user experience change. And also you want to make sure that you brief your support teams if they require detailed support scripts or screenshots or access to evaluate the change in the system. Make sure that they're up to date before your cutover to reduce ticket volume. Now the cutover itself, again, it's typically scheduled during a low traffic period, whether that's a weekday evening or a weekend. It involves if you are keeping the same URL of the community, for example, community.acme.com, if that's working for you now, then that would translate to the new and apply to the new platform. Your network team would be able to make those DNS changes very quickly. You can redirect your old platform URLs to the new site. That is a common strategy to also ensure that your SEO stays intact. And as I said, the actual cutover should usually just take a few hours. After that, we would definitely set up an intensive monitoring period, generally 2 days, where we would review your access reports for those first 2 days of activity. Make sure there is a consistent traffic pattern, if not an increase in traffic due to the changes that you've made. We'd have a response team available for any issues that come up and certainly prioritize any findings and replicate what users might be experiencing. You can then conduct welcome campaigns and orientation for your users and start to collect feedback. Why not collect feedback as soon as possible? That may come from the final announcement in your communication plan where you allow the users to share their feedback on the experience and also allow you to make quick adjustments if necessary. So from all these phases, the overall migration timeline is 8 to 12 weeks from start to finish. 8 to 12 weeks should be sufficient based on what Sarah mentioned before about identifying your contract end date. If you are able to do that, say 16 weeks to start the project, 16 weeks ahead of your contract end date, that would give you some buffer time in the cutover because certainly you wouldn't want to have overlap in your contracts between Khoros and your new chosen platform. Let's talk about some migration best practices. One is to choose vendors with proven migration experience. Another is don't rush. Give adequate time for planning and testing. You're very familiar with the way your community behaves now, but you will be new to the terms and functionality of the new platform, although a lot of industry best practices are already in place amongst community platforms. Don't be afraid to communicate early and often with your community member, especially your VIPs, right? Let them know what's coming. Let them know if there's any significant changes, and that can help with change management at the go live. Can't say enough how important it is to train your admins and those who are going to be maintaining the site, your subject matter experts, on a day-to-day basis. Make sure that's done before go live so that they're equipped to manage and support the community going forward. Also plan for a phased optimization period. You would want to make sure that you don't lose functionality in the migration process, but as long as you keep the same functionality, you can then take advantage of features that this new platform has that you may not have had before. You don't necessarily have to include those at launch, and you can phase them in an optimization period after launch. And of course, just to be conservative, have a rollback plan in case of critical issues. It happens rarely, but it's a good practice to have. And that's an additional use of the buffer time before the end of your contract, because if your contract allows for a rollback plan, you can quickly recover, get back on track, and implement the cutover again.
Thank you so much, John. That was such valuable and insightful information. And now that we've kind of gone through, well, what has happened with Khoros? What's next? When do I evaluate? What are the different phases of a migration, right? All of these different points that make up a platform evaluation and migration. What are some key takeaways? Acquisitions create natural uncertainty. That's totally valid. Your concerns are valid in feeling that way. You're going to a new platform where you might not be as familiar with the features, the terminology, but that's totally okay. That's what this process is for, to get you familiar with this new platform and align you on a platform that is more suitable or allowing you to scale more with your organization. Regular platform evaluation is healthy governance. It's not disloyalty to your current platform provider. You're looking for what can best suit your organizations and your community needs. As mentioned, evaluate at least 1 year before renewal for best outcomes. Try to focus on the three key areas we talked about, so functionality, cost, and support. If a migration ever becomes necessary, again, the process is proven and manageable, right? Every step along the way, there's options and it can be manageable. Just start with that communication early on. And then, as John mentioned, the typical timeline tends to be 8 to 12 weeks with minimal disruption. Of course, if there are any disruptions, it may carry on a little bit further, but typically, from our experience, we've seen it be between 8 to 12 weeks.
Thanks, Sarah. So here are some immediate next steps that you can do. First is to document your current platform experience. That doesn't necessarily have to be a detailed architecture or current inventory of your content, although if you have that already, that would be helpful. The documentation can simply be what's working and what's not working, and right, what could be improved and what are some of the target features that you're looking for. Next is review your contract renewal date. Find out exactly from your finance team, or maybe you have it immediately available from the platform vendor, what your contract renewal date is. Schedule an internal discussion about your platform needs. Get feedback from your peers. Get feedback from those who you've delegated responsibility for certain areas, and have that discussion about, again, what works and what doesn't. Have that feedback loop. Next is you can go and request demos from alternate vendors to understand the market, and we can help facilitate that. Gather feedback from your team and active community members. If you have a VIP program or if you have direct contact with some of your most valued customers, there are certainly helpful ways to get feedback from them. Lastly, make an informed decision based on the data and analysis that you've performed, and then you should be comfortable with the decision that you've made to migrate to a new platform. So whether you stay or go, having that clarity and options will put you in control.
Thank you so much for listening to our webinar today. If you ever have any questions or concerns, you can always reach out to us.